What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. With the dawning running hot and heavy, we're gonna give you guys a little build using the Raiju's harness, which takes into our arc subclass for our hunter right here, and Gathering Storm. We got our fit with the dawning stuff, looking like a space dragon, ice dragon, whatever you want to call it, but we are jolting targets, amplifying ourselves, creating a bunch of super energy for us as well as our teammates. So starting us out with the Mobius Conduit, which is activating our Gathering Storm, calls down a lightning on all nearby targets, jolting them while also amplifying allies. Defeating jolted debuffed targets grants a small amount of Gathering Storm energy, so we are building this into jolting for sure, as well as just defeating those debuffed targets for that super energy. Alright, so inside of our arc subclass, of course, we're going to be using our Gathering Storm for that damage aspect of the super, and we're getting the juice from Raiju's harness. With the marksman's dodge for me, triple jump, I'm going with disorienting blow because of the blinding aspect of this. That is a arc debuff, so we can get more super energy with our exotic chest piece, as well as the pulse grenade for me because I'm going to have this jolt enemies for us. For our aspects, I'm going to be using Ascension as our first one, so we can use our class ability, which flies us up into the sky, amplifying us allies as well as creating jolting aspects. So very good for creating that debuff to help us get even more of the Gathering Storm. And then Lethal Current, after we dodge our next melee attack, has increased range, jolts targets, and it creates a damaging aftershock. Damaging jolted targets with a melee also blinds them, so this right here is going to help us jolt and blind targets with our melee, which is already amplifying and blinding them as it is, so it just adds to that aspect as well with that Ascension again to help with the jolting aspect. For our fragments, we're going to be using Spark of Resistant right here, so we have more damage resistant when we are surrounded by combatants. Spark of Recharge, when critically wounded, our melee and grenade recharge more quickly, which is super nice for that end game, higher end game content. Super good, at least in my personal opinion. We got Spark of Shock for that arc grenade, gonna jolt targets, so we can have our pulse grenade really apply that arc debuff all around with the jolting aspect. It definitely found to give us the most super energy, really just because we can spam this, and we have 100 down there for our grenade energy, and then Spark of Magnitude, so that pulse grenade will last a little bit longer, being able to apply even more of that jolting because of Spark of Shock, just feeding right back into the chest piece and getting Gathering Storm as quickly as possible. Now for the mods and aspects that we got going on with this bad boy right here, for us, we're gonna have Special Ammo Finder as well as Ashes to Assets, because with all the grenade energy that we have, as well as the jolting side of it, with those defeats, even more of that super energy being created. Harmonic Siphon, so our arc weapons are gonna create even more orbs of power, which we're using that for our super, as well as Grenade Kickstarter, so we can get our grenade back when we have that armor charge after throwing it. Causing damage with our melee is gonna give us our grenade, and then we get class ability when we cause damage with our grenade as well, so it's gonna be good to get back our dodge so we can use that Ascension very quickly. Obviously, we got our Raiju's harness right here with damage resistant, totally up to you depending on the activity that you are going into. As for boosts, we got Absolution, Restoration, and Recuperation, getting ourselves some health, our abilities with the least amount of energy, as well as just all of our abilities getting some energy when we pick up those orbs of power. So orbs of power, super important, so we're getting them for these, so we get all of our abilities back. We're getting it to stack up Grenade Kickstarter, as well as just using it for our super in general. Reaper right here helping us to create even more of those orbs of power. Bomber, when we dodge, we're going to get our grenade back, and then Powerful Attraction, also very important. When we dodge, all of those orbs that are near us are going to just automatically attract to us, so very good for everything that I've been describing with. Plus, we're going with Resilience and Discipline as our double 100s with Recovery at 50. Kind of played this into as good as we could get for our two highest, and then Intellect, Strength, and Recovery with Mobility. Tried to throw them as close to 50 as I could, just because they're all kind of essential to the build, but Resistance for that end game, Discipline for that grenade, because the most kind of super energy that we're getting with the arc debuffs on top of Grenade Kickstarter and Ashes to Assets. Now when we move on to our weapons that we're going to be using with this bad boy, we got into Tanasha's Mastery with a Loose Chains Shield Clip. This is going to be nice because we're going to apply that stasis debuff to enemies as well, which will be talked about inside of our Apothecary Satchel. Noxious Vet Verta right here, we got ourselves that Jolting feedback, which I really like. You could have something else, like something with a Volt Shot. You could do Eye Close SMG if you wanted in the slot for the Volt Shot instead of Jolting feedback, but I do like Jolting feedback and the ability for this with Dark Aether Reaper to become overflown really easily. And then last, we are going to have a Legend of Acreus because we got the high damage Arc Blast on this thing, pairs well with the Arc subclass, plus we're using it as our anti-barrier weapon. We're using our SMG as our overload as well, plus this with Shield Clip is going to stun overloads and unstoppables. Now last but not least, we got our Apothecary Satchel right here for our artifact. Like I said, overload SMG, anti-barrier shotgun with the authorized melee mods right there. Enhanced Ether Generator, Dark Aether Reaper origin trait has chance to spawn an extra Dark Aether charge, which will help us to overflow our weapon even more often. Killing Breeze, rapid final blows with our weapons give us more mobility, very nice for our hunter. After finishing a powerful combatant, we gain a damage resistant, very good for that end game content. Trace Evidence right here, rapidly precision defeats or final blows on targets affected by Jolt or Blind is going to help us to create Ionic Traces. Ionic Traces is going to give us back our class ability for that Ascend aspect, which we're going to Jolt and blind enemies in general. So this is very good for this build because we're getting Ionic Traces everywhere. Curative Orb's going to help us to create more orb power when we break combatant shield for the first time, or Guardians in their super, definitely helping us in a lot of aspects with this build. Like I said, Grenade Kickstarter for that Jolting Pulse Grenade that we have, as well as for our super. When we finish an enemy as well, we're going to get a nice blinding burst because of our Arc super, so adding into what we're getting with this build for our Raiju's Harness, as well as Trace Evidence, creating more Ionic charges for us. Shattering Stasis Crystals give us that slow and damaging little shards that come off of them. Brain Freeze, frozen targets apply a little slow field around them, which is also pretty good because of that Ayesha's Mastery in the sidearm rocket that we got right there. And then last but not least, Conductive Cosmic Crystal. Our Arc abilities as well as our SMG are going to do more damage against stasis debuff targets, and we are getting that stasis debuff just intrinsically, like I said, with that rocket powered sidearm into Nasha's Mastery, with that chill clip. Very little good aspect, at least for this season. Either way, that thing is absolutely broken in the PvE realm. Feels even better because we can do stuff like this with it, get our Arc and Dark Aether Reaper weapons to do more damage. So with this, our grenade as well as our super and our melee are going to do more damage. Even our Ascension, when we use it to jolt enemies, going to do a little bit more damage because of that Conductive Cosmic Crystal on our Apothecary Satchel. So this build, very fun, can take it really into any type of content. I was going through Contests of Elders right here. You can see was going through it with pretty good ease. You do go up levels as you go through each of these circles around the good old Tomb of Elders. So very fun build. Hunters, check it out. This a new chess piece, or I guess it's an old chess piece, but very different from what it used to be when it first came out. Definitely feels very good for getting that super energy quickly. Plus it clears a bunch of ads with that lightning that it calls down on anything that's near you when you throw it, and that Gathering Storm. Still pretty solid for DPS, especially this season, like I said, because we can have it do more damage with stasis debuff targets as well. So very fun little build. Definitely try it out. Hunters, you know you got one of these chess pieces rolling around in your vault because it has been pulled out in quite some time. But again, appreciate all you guys for coming back to the channel. As always, means a lot to me, means a lot to the channel. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.